I know it's cornball thing. But love is
a bunch of guys thinking outside of the box, you know?
obsession.
This is Suga Friendz podcast. We are a music podcast. We interview underground and rising artists about their journey to music and their new releases. So if you aren't aware, Tillz, we're here with the legendary Tillz. He's a songwriter, he's a rapper, he's a producer, and he has just released a new album called 4 Rings. Suga Friendz is here to interview him about that album. So at the beginning of every podcast, I just like to do a check-in with artists to just ask, like, how are you doing personally? Like, how's everything going in your life? Kind of like a check-in, like a, wellness check-in of sorts.
Okay, yeah. Everything's good. Work. I still work. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I mean? So, that's an everyday thing. So it's just work and music and work and be a parent and work, you know what I'm saying? So, yeah, for the most part, man, everything is good. It don't make no sense to complain. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We here.
For sure, we here. And that's so true, because, like, we notice, like, with a lot of rising or emerging artists, like, y'all do have lives outside of music. A lot of y'all do. And so that's why I always like to check in. So, Darian, again, you said you was doing good, so you have to check in.
Yeah,
You
I'm
just
doing
said
good.
work, too.
Yeah,
So we all
work,
just working,
girl.
Right, big family reunion. So we can transition, like, sort of into a segment that I love, that we always have on Suga Friendz. It's called Journey to Music.
Okay.
And I realized that, you may not, I don't know if you've done other interviews or not, but, like, people on here might be from my page, they might be from Darian's page. So I always like to do a Journey to Music segment, which is just sort of like an introduction into who Tillz, the artist, is. So just tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, where are you from? You can start with that.
Okay, cool. I'm from Virginia, born and raised. I was born in Norfolk, raised in Chesapeake, Portsmouth, a little bit of Norfolk. I've been here all my life. So that's where I'm from. Product of a single parent household and, stepdad, however you want to call that. But, at the end of everything, you can hear me say, we here. You know what I'm saying? I could get into a lot of detail, but, you know what I mean? We here. So a lot of that is really in the music. You know what I'm saying? So for a lot of people who don't know me, I talk about this shit. You know what I mean? I've been talking about this. You know what I'm saying? So from the latest project, people been going back and listening to the first joint and be like, oh, I get people hit me up all the time like, dang, you been saying this, or you been saying that. So, yeah, that's where I'm from, Virginia, born and raised. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, dope. And that's one of the things that I connected with you as an artist from initially, because I'm also from the South, so is Darian. Our whole, like, podcast brand is about, like, Southern folks, like, being interested in music and sort of having that discourse. And so that was one of the initial things I was like, oh, wow. And, like, Tillz has kind of, like, Virginia, like, Southern identity. Just like you said, is, throughout, the entirety of your music. And so I really fucked with that a whole lot. Tell us a little bit about music. Like, what were your, like, early memories in music in general? Like, not really like hip hop, but just like in music,
Early memories in music. My aunts and my mom and two of my aunts used to have a singing group, a gospel group. And I always said that, whenever I got the platform, I would let people know that my aunt she is a songwriter, and she wrote Problems, and the DeBarge guys stole that when they came here in Norfolk. They were looking for talent. Yeah, my aunt wrote that song. My aunt wrote that song. She wrote Problems. Yeah, it was a gospel song at first. They changed the words and made it into R&B song. So my aunt always told me that whenever I wrote something to get it copywritten, so I've always been on my copyright stuff, you know what I'm saying? For that simple fact, like, we hear that song, she don't really like to hear it because that song has been sampled so many times, you know what I'm saying? And, I see my aunt and I'm like, damn. You know what I'm saying? Like, back then you could do poor man's copy. So, you could write you could write your lyrics out and then mail it to yourself to have proof that you wrote it. But man, they stole that song. You know what I'm saying? So those are my early memories of music. Is you know, being raised in the church. I played the drums, played a little bit of keyboard. Just a lot of gospel groups, and you know, a couple other family members that sung R&B and played in bands and stuff like that. So yeah, that's pretty much early music. Yep.
Wow, I love to ask that question because what you'll see within a lot of like really talented folks is that in their early lives is music, right? Even outside of their like particular genre, right? Like for you fluctuate within the hip hop space a lot, but you have that early memories of, you know, your aunts being a songwriter and the gospel, and you can feel that a lot. And I feel like that's even consistent with like Southern identity and Southern culture as well. Any like woman you ask who was like a really great singer, she grew up singing in the choir. Like that is like with always within their artist profile, like early on. And I think what you said about drums is really interesting too, because the way in which you hear sound is so particularly well. And a lot of that probably comes from that early work, you know, in the drums at the church house. So I just love to ask that question because it's always so telling, and it's like, oh, now I understand why this person is like extremely talented, because music has been a part of their lives since they were really young. And to hear your story about your aunt, like that's even more telling and like a really interesting story, because you get an insight into the industry and what happens, you know, in the industry and how people get screwed over and stuff like that. So that's a really unique story and sort of introductory into music as well. So I really appreciate you, and I didn't know that information. Obviously, this is the first time I'm hearing this. So I really appreciate you sharing that on this platform, because that is like an issue that is prevalent a lot, is people like hijack things, especially from Black folks, right, in the music space. So thank you for sharing that. No problem. So you eventually like transitioned into more of like, you know, a more professional sense in hip hop. Do you remember your first time like writing any? Like, do you remember your connection? Like, because you're a really great writer. Like when I listen to your music, like that's one of the things that I love, is the way in which you articulate things. So do you have any early memories or connections to writing specifically?
Oh yeah, I used to write rhymes in church, sitting on the drums. And a lot of my songs, well, I wouldn't say a lot of my songs, like even on my first project, I can't remember the song, but I'm talking about how, you know, I used to write rhymes while my stepdad was preaching. That's when I, you know, all of it came to me then, you know what I mean? So I was about 7 years old, but I used to write R&B a lot first, because my first memory of R&B was a Curtis Mayfield record. I used to I used to listen to Curtis Mayfield a lot when I used to go around my uncles. So I used to write little bits and pieces here on the back of the church bulletins and the fans and stuff, fold it up, get home and write, you know, put verses together and, you know, stuff like that. Or we'll do it in front of my cousins, and, you know, everybody had, you know, a little bit or a piece of something to write or sing. So, yeah, so, I mean, I started off singing first, to be honest. So, it just so happened that my cousins that I was around, they rapped, and I'm like, man, I could do this shit too. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, it started from there. And I remember my first tape I recorded over one of my mom's gospel tapes. And I put it back because I was recording a little bit at a time, and she found the tape. And I got home from school. She was like, I didn't know you can rap, but you cuss too much. You know what I'm saying? So that's really my first memories of that. So I always would write stuff. You know, imagination was always wild, but it was never fantasy stuff. It was always stuff that I saw, because we had to grow up real fast emotionally. I don't think a lot of people understand that. You know what I'm saying? Growing up emotionally, you kind of ahead of a lot of people. So with that being said, you know, at one point I dumbed myself down. You know what I'm saying? I used to battle rap, I got in a lot of fights behind battle rap. You know what I'm saying? I tell Mo and Vega and Books, I tell them that, you know what I'm saying, because they look at me and they like, oh, like I'm chill. I am chill, but it took a while to get here. You know what I'm saying? Is you know, I can remember battling a nigga in school and then having to fight him after school. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm personal. You know what I mean? If I'm gonna write about you, I'm gonna write about you. You know what I'm saying? So, but I don't do that no more. You know what I'm saying? But even still in my songs, like, you know, I say a little bit here and there. The people who know I'm talking to them, they know I'm talking to them. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't gotta say no names, but I say all that to say, you know, my early childhood memories of writing was in church. You know what I'm saying? We grew up in the church, 2, 3, 4 church services a Sunday. You know what I'm saying? I'm writing on the drums. I'm writing in the choir. I'm writing in the car. You know what I mean? And I got a little book that nobody know about. So, like I said, when my mom found that tape, you know, she wasn't mad. You know what I'm saying? I think she knew we had it in us. You know what I'm saying? But a lot of people don't know my older brother was a beast. Like, he can, like, my older brother, I have 2 siblings. I have a younger sister and an older brother. My brother nice. He don't care about that shit, though. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I'm rambling, but
no,
yeah,
all of that information, all that information is like, wow, now I get a lot more, because I don't know you, like, personally, but I know you, like, enough to just, like, have picked up on some things, and everything you said is like, wow, like, I'm connecting the dots, like, being in church and, you know, soul in terms of sound, right, but also soul in terms of your actual soul and the way that you pour that into your music. And that's so evident when you put on your headphones or you play it in the car, however you consume music. When you listen to your music, it's very soulful. Like I said, not just in sound, but in, like, actual soul, right? The emotion that you pour into it. So
well, see, that's another thing too. So it wasn't always like that. You know what I'm saying? It became that way when it was just a lot going on in life, and, you know, you could talk about, I could write about, you know, anything until I started talking about what I was going through or how I was feeling. People connected with me more. I'd see people in passing like, yo, that shit you said you was talking about your grandma, or you was talking about da-da-da-da-da. Like, you know, that shit, you know, made me feel a certain way. You know what I mean? So it's always, I don't try to outdo myself every time. You know what I'm saying? And then even with speaking on the writing, like, even having to dumb myself down before because I was making music because it was fun to do and it was therapeutic. I didn't start really diving into or tapping into certain things until I would link up with MTS. But that's a different story. We'll get there. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to jump the gun because I know you got questions because these guys' names come up a lot. You know what I'm saying? Especially now, you know what I'm saying, within the past couple of years. So, you know, we'll get there.
Yeah, I mean, Journey to Music is to talk about those things, right? It's to talk about how you got to that point. And so there's no, definitely share or flow this interview. You know, you're really the artist in charge here. You know, the artist is in charge on Suga and Friends podcast. You know, we ask the leading questions, things that people might want to hear, but, you know, this is your interview. This is the mic. You know.
Oh, yeah.
Cool. But I think, again, just to echo what you're saying, I think everything is sort of like I'm connecting the dots, and it's making a lot of sense. And like I said, I don't know you personally, but I know you enough to know, like, oh, okay, this is why Tillz is the way he is, or when I listen to his music, this is what I'm getting from him. And you're a person, too, that echoes a lot of, like, influences around you, and, like, you're always one to talk about that. And I totally get, like, journey, right? This is why we call it the journey to music, because you went from, like you said, at one point, not writing the way that you do to now writing the way that you do, due to a various of different reasons, right? And so now you are where you are. So yeah, that's what we call the journey to music. So all of that is important. I don't know if Jerry wanted to add anything. I'm talking a lot, but
no, you're good. I am on the journey of learning this album.
Yes.
because I've been listening to it and I've been bumping in the car.
Yeah.
When I get off work.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
It was solid.
Yeah, and we appreciate you coming on here. And if anybody's just now joining, this is Suga Friendz podcast. We are here with the legendary Tillz. He's a songwriter, he's a rapper, he's a producer, and we're interviewing him about his latest release. And now we're talking about his journey to music. So I just wanted to ask you those leading questions for people just trying to like get an understanding of who you are.
Okay.
And just a little bit of background, because I don't know if people, if you've been on other podcasts or other interviews, people might, from my page or from Darian's page, you're like, who is that Tillz? And then when they come into your music, because your music is so conversational, and they're like, whoa, like it's gonna take them over, right? They're gonna get that feeling. And so now people can go back and listen to this interview and they're like, oh, I can kind of like make some connections and know some things without like knowing him personally.
Right.
So that's why I do that. So anything else, if you want to share about your journey to music, feel free to share it.
Oh,
now.
I mean, so of course, there's guys that I did music with here, you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, but unfortunately, it's not that, you know what I mean? So, I wish them guys mad success. So the connection really start with Dags, which is how I met MTS. We all would record at the same studio. It was the Dungeon back then. This dude named Bless the Genius, who owns Soundscape Studios. But we always would record there, and in passing, Dags would have something. Yo, you trying to get on this? We'll jump on it. Me and Dags is my guy. You know what I'm saying?
Love Dags.
I met MTS through Dags, but I also knew MTS brother. You know what I'm saying? That's my guy too. But I say all that to say I would jump on. So a couple years back, MTS would come back and forth here to Virginia. You know what I'm saying? He'd get on in the studio with me, like, no problem. I'd be like, bro, you got something? You trying to jump on this? He'll do that shit. You know what I'm saying? But this is that's what I'm saying. But when I would hear MTS on this shit, I'm like, yo, I gotta step this shit up. Even dads, cause like they writers. You know what I'm saying? So like they writers, like I could write like that, but them guys would make me want to change my shit. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm just being real. You know what I'm saying? Like they was like, let me. He came like this. Let me go back to the drawing board. You know what I'm saying? And then so from there, even within the past couple years, me and MTS, we got songs. Me and MTS got songs. You know what I'm saying? And I met Vega through MTS. He jumped on the song. Well, I jumped on the song that they was on. When I heard Vega, I was a fan. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, this dude, nice. Who is bro? You know what I'm saying? We all formed a brotherhood, man. Them guys, accepted me with open arms as well as books, man. And, at a point in time, I had a lot going on. I don't want to say a lot going on. It's just, like being a single parent and shit, you know what I'm saying? You got to kind of balance everything you're going through. You know what I'm saying? So when things got frustrated, I always would record. That was therapeutic. You know what I'm saying?
That was your coping mechanism?
My coping mechanism. So these guys, MTS, Dags, Vega, Books, they really push my pen. You know what I'm saying? Like, they really push my pen, and
they challenged you.
Yeah, as far as producing, I stopped producing because one of my homeboys, he lost a flash drive with all of my shit on it. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? So I stopped producing. So I started producing. I would make beats here and there. You know what I'm saying? I'd send them in the group chat. You know what I'm saying? Books would be like, yo, that's dope. Or Mo be like, yo, that's dope. So really, but Vega sent me like drum kits, samples. You know what I'm saying? Like he flooded me with that. You know what I mean? And I'm grateful for those guys, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like because they ain't have to accept me with open arms, man. I told them that I'm always big them guys up. You know what I'm saying? And then Books, he the brave one because he dropped the tape with 5 beats that I made. You know what I'm saying? Like, so really, you know, I'm proud of that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm proud of that shit. You know what I mean? Because he didn't have to do that either. When I tell these guys, I'm just happy to be here. So when I make music like I'm happy to be here. You know what I'm saying? I could talk about all this bad shit or, you know, what's not going right in my life, which I'm good. You know what I'm saying? But when you're a thinker, you're constantly thinking about what could happen wrong. You know what I'm saying? You're always thinking, what's the next worst thing that can happen?
Next.
But I don't live my life like that. But like I said, when you're a thinker, gears be turning.
Yeah.
So like
waiting for the other shoe to drop type thing.
If it wasn't for those guys, you know what I'm saying? Like I said, Dags, MTS, Books, Vega, you know what I'm saying? Like, I appreciate that shit, man, because, you know, they gave me motivation to, you know, put them drums on these beats. You know what I'm saying? Really, Vega gave me the sample for We Got a Thing. You know what I'm saying? He sent that. He sent that sample, and, you know what I'm saying? And I chopped that shit up, you know.
Yeah.
That shit just be motivation, man, because when you feel a certain type of way, you know, we talking in group chat, even Dags. When I had COVID, I had COVID really bad, and I was gonna give up, man. Dags sent me tea. He sent me herb from California.
Dags was some tea and herbs.
He checked on me. You know what I'm saying? Like, he checked on me. You know what I mean? And made sure I was good. And, you know, the other guys that I thought, you know, was my friends, them niggas. No,
you found your tribe.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm rocking with who rocking with me, man. That's just it. You know what I mean? Like, history.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, one thing I do want to like put out there and sort of like center you in it is like, I love the way you're like I'm just happy to be here, and like, no, like, we're happy to have you, like very much like put that in the space, like put that in the energy, like we are also happy to have you, Tillz, because you contribute a lot to our lives, the people as us as consumers who listen to your music, or, you know, are fans of you, for friends and family. Like, no, like, you don't, like, we are happy to also have you. And so I just want to put that like in the space, in the energy, because you light up a room. Like, it's just, you have that energy about you, and you have that, like I said earlier, like, you have that thing where it's like almost like you're everybody's favorite cousin. Like, you just have that way about you that just draws people in. So I just kind of want to put that in there and see in that too, honey.
Yeah. Oh, I see Let the Dirt in here.
Dirt.
Put me on his music too. Dads put me on his music when I came to Cali. I was like, yo, who is this dude, man? And I've been listening to him ever since. So I'm honored, dog. You know what I'm saying? Books, BIM tape, produced by Tillz.
Produced by Tillz is so fire. I love that. We're gonna get into Four Rings, so I appreciate talking about your journey to music. You know, we're the type of podcast that we get project specific. So, you know, we like to do our journey to music in the first like 15, or I guess it's been 30 minutes now, in the first like 30 minutes, so that we love you too, Dirt. Dirt said he love us. We like to do that in the first 30 minutes so that we can, you know, get that on the books. People can go back and listen and know about you. So I really appreciate you sharing everything you do. And you're always shouting other people. And, you know, that's why, you know, we like to have you on here on the podcast so that we can tap in with you.
In here.
So let's get into Four Rings. So I saw your IG post. I think it was like last night. Like, you made an IG post about your album and sort of like why it's called like Four Rings. And honestly, like, it didn't really hit me until I read that post. Like, I knew how many projects you had out, because that's another thing we do on Suga Friendz podcast. We know niggas' projects. We know what they have out. We're researchers. And so I knew how many projects you had out, but it didn't like make sense to me. Like, it didn't connect in my head. Like, oh, Four Rings. Like, oh, this is his 4th solo project, right? And so I think that's super important to include, that is your 4th solo project, because solo projects are so incredibly difficult in terms of the process and how long it can take, and like I think that to your artistry and like how unique you are as an artist, because 4 solo projects is a lot. And so we just want to congratulate you on the 4th ring, giving us 4 Rings, which is the name of the album. If you haven't heard it yet, anybody in the audience, it's on all DSPs. Go buy, go stream, go support that album called 4 Rings by Tillz, because it is incredible. So we just wanted to congratulate you on releasing your 4th album. So
appreciate that.
We know how important that is. And it's another solo debut. So, but I just wanted to get into the content. We're going to get, like, in the first section of this is going to be more about content of the album. And you kind of already, like, started in that, which is dope. But the album starts with a song called Pregame, right? A track called Pregame. And I think that intro into the album, I think really set it off and like gave anybody who was listening, like your audience, like a key into important conversations that would be had throughout the rest of the album. And so when I was listening to it, I was like looking for certain like lines that like kind of stuck out to me. And then there was one line, it was like, I do this with no effort, got a foot on y'all's necks and won't let up. My daughter brag about me a lot. Why would she shut up? I've been knocking down, but I would still get up. But like, it was different lines that kept standing out to me, that kept hitting me. And I was like, wow, like I can only imagine, like just listening to the first track, what the rest of the album is gonna be like. And I was like, you have a particular way of speaking to the condition or like the status quo, so like the reality of life, that comes from like a place of understanding, right? Like not so much like arrogance, right? Because like we listen to folks sometimes and it's like a little arrogant and like we want to root for the person behind the mic, but the way in which we talk about life is more from a place of understanding. It's cathartic, right? Like it's pouring out of emotion. And so for the first track to kind of give me that, right? Like you have your element of confidence, but it's not like an annoying, arrogant thing. It's more like I understand life and I understand where I'm at right now. And the journey to music, right? The journey to the process to where I am now, where I'm 4 albums, in. And you're extremely charismatic. So like my first question in this section is like, what's your understanding about being an artist right now and what that entails? Like, personally, professionally, like where do you stand in your artistry?
Where I stand, I just know what's going on. I mean, it's just that simple. And for real, my man Yola, he set the tone to that track. You know what I mean? Like I asked him could he do it, and he sent it like ASAP. You know what I mean? And he set the tone, like just listening to what he was saying. I wrote that based off what he was saying. You know what I'm saying? And what he was saying, because that's how we talk. You know what I mean? Like he really dropped gems, and you know what I'm saying. And when he speaks, like I be listening to what he's saying. You know what I mean? Because I know he one of those guys that want to see everybody win. You know what I mean? And he's in Savannah. So when I hit him, I met bro up here like a couple years ago, and we've been rocking ever since. So so I wrote that based off what he was saying, and when I sat down and thought about that shit, because it touched my soul, that's why I came off the way that I came off. You know what I'm saying? So where I stand in my artistry is I'm comfortable but not complacent. You know what I'm saying? I'm getting back really to the old me as far as how I write. You know what I'm saying? And that's basically what that is. I talk about, of course, life shit. You know what I mean? I just know what's going on, and I mean that in every possible way. You know what I mean? Like I know me, and I rap like I'm talking to myself. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
Yeah, like again, I'm just kind of gonna like echo like what I said before and kind of like take in what you just said. Listening to track, and then like now I've heard the full album multiple times, but like it really did, and like MCS said, y'all, that was an excellent intro. It really was, because it really did like set up for important conversations to be had, that were going to be had. It's almost like you did like a preview, and then, you know, throughout the rest of the album, you know, you continued sort of that theme. And like my next question in this section was going to be like, what's your gospel? Like, do you think you were conveying like and I guess you kind of like hit on it a little bit, but like, what was your gospel in this like album? Like, do you think you were conveying a particular message, or like did you want to address particular conversations?
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of conversations to be had. The whole meaning behind this was, you know, just the fourth project that, you know, I curated by myself, of course, with the help of my guys, man. But, you know, I remember asking dudes, yo, like, how you get your music on Apple Music and this, that, and the third? Because we have projects on that fifth and, you know, other shit like that. Like I said in the post, I probably got mad music out here, you know what I'm saying, with dudes I done did music with. We probably got 30 projects, you know what I'm saying? Some of them probably still on fucking CD, but the tone of this was just to let myself know that I did this shit. I had to figure out the recipe when niggas wouldn't give me the recipe. That's all this shit is. You know what I'm saying? That's all this shit is. Like, when I asked niggas for help. You know what I'm saying? Yo, how you do this, bro? Yeah, I'm gonna let you know. When I figured it out on my own, niggas felt the way. You know what I'm saying? Like, dang, bro, you dropping in this, that, or the third. Yeah.
So, like, I know that you're saying, like, when you was going through stuff, it was kind of like you really didn't want to like do music anymore and stuff like that. Is this project kind of?
I did. It's not that I want to do music anymore. You know what I'm saying?
Is it like you finding your love for it again, or just like doing it in a
that's what the production. That's the production side of it. You know what I'm saying? I always was going to do music. You know what I'm saying? The production side. These guys made me fall in love with production again. You know what I'm saying? Just to clarify that, I would never stop, you know, my craft. You know what I'm saying? I made beats because I could. You know what I'm saying? So me perfecting the program and making all these beats and having samples chopped up to use later on down the line. Man, I got about 100 samples I done used before a lot of these niggas use. You know what I'm saying? Not to brag or nothing like that. It's just that when I lost all of that stuff, you know what I'm saying? It's like, what now? You know what I'm saying? I didn't want to make no more beats. I'm like, fuck this. I'm not making no beats. You know what I'm saying? Until, you know, like I said, to go, you know, get back to your question. Yeah, it was never rhyming. That was just production. You know what I'm saying? It made me want to stop production.
Got it.
You know?
Dope, but to sort of even get back to, and thank you for that clarification, Darian and Tillz. And you shouldn't start rhyming. You shouldn't stop rhyming, because that would be a disgrace, because you're extremely talented. We love to hear your voice every time. But kind of going back to like my initial question and what I what I asked before, even songs like Celebrate, which I love. When I tell you I done played Celebrate till I can't play that motherfucker no more, like that's like my song for real. And I feel like a lot of the tracks, I was like, oh, like this is going to be a song I'm going to continue to play, because he's touching on a lot of things and articulating in a way, for a person like me who's a traditional writer, like the way you're articulating it is what's so fascinating to me, and the content is so important. But even songs like Celebrate, like there's a line where you say, like, I got a passion for this. Remember when I used to last on y'all list, you know, now y'all want to rock with me now, but I declined a little bit. like that, like, I was like, literally, that's my whole entire mood right now. Like this, and I think I've said it before in a post, like being funny, like the little meme that I posted, like this album is my mood. Like you're touching on a lot of things that I think a lot of people are kind of in their space right now, and I think you go through this like just in life, and I kind of like mentioned that earlier, like you have a way about speaking to the condition or like the status quo and reality in a way that's not like, you know, distasteful and like you know, distasteful in like a super arrogant way, but like I just know me and I know where I'm at right now, and I'm just like speaking to the tradition, and it's cathartic, but you're also charismatic. like in that, that line I just spit for you, like, it's just, when I heard the content just from the first track, I was like, wow. And then, we just talked about Celebrate too, but I was like, Tillz is just really bringing into the space what I think is needed. Like, we have these conversations in hip hop all the time. Like, what do you bring? Like, how are you adding value, basically? Like, what do you do for the space, like, as an artist? And there's always going to be a need for folks that speak to the condition, that speak to the status quo, that speak to, reality and about life, and articulate it in a way that folks like me can't articulate it. But when I listen to your music, I'm like, whoa, like, I feel this exact same way. Like, you used to sleep on me, but like, look at me now. Like, you didn't want to give me no help, but look at me now. Like, I, just like you mentioned earlier, like, this is a curated project. Like, you curated this project. Like, you put in a lot of like blood, sweat, and tears into this. And to see, look at me now, like, celebrate, like, here's where I'm at now, and I stand in this. And even still, like, the way in which you're humble and like you carry yourself in the space, it's fascinating to me. Like, your content is so needed. I just want to share that with you, brother. Like, your content is so needed right now in the hip hop space, especially in the underground. I just share that with you. And I don't know if Gary wanted to add anything or anything.
You summed it up perfectly, Alex.
Yeah, so I just wanted to share that with you. And I don't know if you wanted to add anything a little extra to that little bit too.
Oh yeah, just that Celebrate song. I recorded that. I recorded that the day I wrapped up No Love Lost. I knew that was gonna be for Four Rings. I mean, it just that song is just a personal celebratory moment. You know what I'm saying? One of those things where, I'm, like I said, I'm talking to myself. I'm like, all of this shit is pep talk. You know what I'm saying? Like, all of this shit is pep talk. Like, some of this shit is what I say to myself when I look in the mirror. You know what I'm saying? Before I leave out the door. You know what I'm saying? Like, even that I got a passion for this. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know if I feel like that, there's one other person that feel like this, and they know somebody who feel like that, and that person knows somebody who feel like that. Man, this shit is just all pep talk. Yeah. This ain't me, you know what I mean? This ain't me trying to out rhyme somebody or, talk down on. I'm talking to myself, man. Like, I'm just talking to me. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking to me. The same pep talk, the same shit. All of us doing these group chats, you know what I'm saying? Like, I take those words these guys say, you know what I'm saying? I take these motivational words, Book say, Vega say, Dag say, MCS say, and I use that shit. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking to myself. Like, this shit, that shit real, man. You know what I mean? Like, I can't even say it no other way.
I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no,
I was gonna say, in a lot of ways, you do that for us, right? Like, the person that's listening, like, I think I just echoed it a minute ago, like, as a person who, like, has curated their own podcast and is, like, still growing, and, like, I've been through a lot with people. Like, I've dealt in reality, I've dealt in life, I've seen people come and go, like, in and out of my life, and I've dealt with things, and I've dealt with asking people for help and not getting it. And, like, when I was finally up to a point where I'm like, I'm just gonna do this by myself and, like, see what happens. And, like, being just like you said, like, when you just stuff that you tell yourself when you look into the mirror, like, I think we sleep on that. Like, it's so important to, like, that pep talk is, like, so important for yourself to be tapped into as weird as it sounds, to be tapped into yourself, to be tapped into your emotions, to be tapped into where you are in life right now, and why it's important. So I think, just on a content level, I think, just from those, few tracks that we just talked about, Celebrated Pregame, like, you set the tone throughout the entire album. And I think, that's something that, occurred repetitively throughout it. And so I just wanted to touch on that a little bit. And anybody that has not listened to Four Rings, I know a lot of people in here have, because it's amazing and incredible. It's on all DSPs right now. Go listen to Four Rings by Tillz. So we're still kind of like in like content mode, but I want to talk about like songwriting.
Okay.
So we're going to do a little bit of like songwriting. I want to talk about the way, I think I mentioned this a little earlier, like you're really, that's my dad, guys. Oh, that is so cute. That is, OMG, that just made my heart like explode. That is too cute. But that is so cute. Sorry, that knocked me off. But the way in which you're like super conversational, I think, is so dope. Because like it feels like when I'm listening to your music, it feels like we're just talking and having like a deep conversation, which is something that I love about your music. I don't feel like I'm being bombarded or like it just feels very welcoming. And that aspect, like I said before, is very needed in the space. And I think I just want to know, like, in terms of like on a technical note of songwriting, like, are you, because you are a very good songwriter and you write great songs, and so I just kind of want to know, like, are you an artist that prioritizes like technical aspects of writing, such as like hooks, or like do you think about like whether or not this song has a bridge? Like, how does songwriting come to you when you get ready to like approach a song? Like, are you one of those people that's like a stickler on like I have to do this? I think you kind of mentioned this a little bit, but I kind of want to know more about like you as a songwriter, because you know, I'm a person that writes a lot, like outside of not like being an artist, like a singer, but I write a lot. And so I'm really interested like in the technical linguistic aspects of artists. And so I'm just curious songwriting.
So the recipe is simple. I don't think about it too much. I don't think about it too much. I ride with beats. And, you know, I might have a piece here or there. I always come up with a melody first. So for a lot of the songs that I do have, like, singing hooks, like, I always just come up with that first. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to do this on this. And, you know, and then a lot of that stuff, too. My daughter, she be right there with me. Like, even on the last project, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, my daughter, she throw her 2 cents in. You know what I mean? And, you know, she's like, oh, you should do it like this. So that's why she get writing credit. You know what I'm saying? Or she'll hum a little something, and then I pick it up. You know, I can't say, you know, that she don't have a hand in none of this. She talented too. You know what I'm saying? And then a lot of the times we be on the same page because, like I said, I do ride around with beats. You know what I'm saying? I play beats all the time. She ain't make this because she make this project only because she wasn't ready. You know what I'm saying? I won't go rush her, and I'm not about to exploit her. You know what I'm saying? I let her do it. If she want to do it. You know what I'm saying? I don't put no pressure on her. So, but yeah, I don't think about it. I really don't. I don't think about it. You know what I'm saying? If a lot of these times I don't really have no concept. I really just say how I be feeling. You know what I'm saying? Once I say how I feel and, you know, I tie in a hook with it, that's pretty much it. I don't think about it too much.
It's free flowing?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, I just wanted, like I said, I ask in different ways to different artists depending on like, you know, the artist profile that I've done before we do the interviewing. But for you, like I said, like you're just really good at writing. Like your way of being conversation, also complex. Like you say things and like, and I think a part of that is like Southern identity too. Because I was thinking about like idioms and like what we say a lot in the South. Like you'll hear something from like your mama or your auntie or your grandma, and then like come back. And you'll be older, like maybe they said something when you were younger, but then you grew up and you like, oh, like this makes sense now. Now I understand, you know, like I think my mom used to say all the time, if it ain't one thing, it's another. Like, you know, like stuff like that. Like you have a lot of that in your music that like, I'm like, oh, I fuck with this a lot because I know exactly what he's saying. And like, I get what he's conveying, you know, so there's like a healthy mix of both. And you really do have great hooks. And I think what's important too about your songwriting is your display of emotion. And so like my next question would be like, and you talked about this in your, like we talked about your IG post last night, and I think you kind of touched on this a little bit there too, but I feel like you're unapologetic about being, you know, having an element of catharsis in like your music, and like, you know, why do you think, like why for you maybe is it important to display emotion like in your music as an artist? You know, like as you traffic in the space and create music, like you know, I think you might have mentioned earlier being therapeutic, or is it different now than it was like a couple years ago? Like, why do you think it's important to display like emotion so much in your music?
I mean, I think it's important because, you know, like I said, you know, I know if I felt a certain type of way about certain things, there was somebody else that felt a certain type of way. And really, a lot of my cousins didn't listen to my music because they thought I was rapping about other stuff. You know what I'm saying? Until they heard For All This Work. That's probably my most personal project.
Yeah.
So when they heard that, a lot of my cousins and, you know, people I grew up with, like, yo, bro, like, I ain't know you was doing it like that. You know what I'm saying? So showing emotion was important for me because we're taught not to show emotion. You know what I'm saying? You know, especially as black boys, black men growing up, you know what I'm saying? You know, you ain't supposed to cry about shit. You ain't supposed to let nobody see you sad. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how I was raised. You know what I mean? So a lot of my emotion, you know, is gonna come out in my music because I didn't get to say that shit when I was a kid, or, you know, when I felt a certain way. You know, if an adult made you feel a certain type of way, you was being disrespectful by saying, "Oh yeah, Mr. or Mrs. So and so made me feel, you know what I'm saying, a certain type of way." So at that point, it made me feel like, you know, I'm gonna always say what I mean and how I feel because I might not get a chance to get my shit off. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, I don't harbor any, you know, hatred or bad emotions or anything like that. It's just a learning process for me. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I feel like talking about your emotions or showing your emotions in music is important because for me it was therapeutic. Yeah, at the same time it helped me cope with death. You know what I'm saying? Like that shit made me cope with death. So yeah.
I appreciate you sharing that because everything what you just said is like so true. And that's why I enjoy asking that question to artists sometimes about, especially ones that display a lot of emotion in their work, because it's super unique in the space as a whole. And especially because a lot of the opposite happens, right? Like if we're sharing emotion, then a lot of it, and this isn't to judge anyone about their music or anything like that.
Right.
Speak to the condition, which is what you just said. Like we aren't allowed to be emotional. So what comes out as emotion is like anger or like, you know, a level of like distastefulness in terms of like arrogance. Like sometimes like you might feel like you have to resort to that type of like display of emotion rather than like this just comes from my heart, this just comes from my soul, because I don't feel comfortable doing that all the time, right? I don't feel comfortable in this.
But I didn't though. Yeah. That's the thing. I didn't. You know what I mean? So not feeling comfortable doing that because of course you don't want people to look at you a certain way, but I cared about what my big cousins thought, you know what I'm saying? Especially the ones that was getting money, you know what I'm saying? And I seen what they listened to when they heard me rap. It was like, okay, you got it. But when they heard when they heard that project, and this is just in 2019, you know what I'm saying? So, 2020, when they heard that, it was, you know, I knew I did something right because I didn't care what everybody else felt. I knew, you know, so within my circle, I always would say I did music. They'd ask me how the music going, you know what I'm saying? But when they heard it, you know what I'm saying? Everybody can big you up because you're doing this shit, but when they heard it and listened to what I was talking about, and like even my cousins, shit that we went through as kids that they didn't know or probably didn't think that I knew what was going on, like, I'm letting y'all know, like, I saw that shit, and this is what I learned from. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll give you an example. So, there's one dude that one of my cousins was dating named Dante, rest in peace. He was a hustler, and every time he'd come around, he'd be like, spit something for me, and I'd rap for him, you know what I'm saying? And every time I would see him, I'd rap for him. Then one day he stopped coming around. He was murdered. And when I found that shit out, part of that made me go a little bit harder. You know what I'm saying? That made me feel a certain type of way. You know what I'm saying? It went from, yeah, I was battling these dudes, but then I was also, that made me be personal. So if I'm personal, you know what I'm saying, and you know I'm talking about personal shit, like I said, if I feel this way, there's another person who feel the same way.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it in a nutshell.
So my condolences.
Yeah. Like,
oh, thank you.
You like leave me, and I feel like you just be like, yeah, you know, like this whatever, but like no, it's like no, like you have so much power in the way that you speak and the way that you articulate life, and the way that you think about others. Like that's such a like, yeah, you don't come across that a lot, and that's not to put you on some like insane pedestal or to not, but it is to put you on some insane pedestal, but it's just to speak to like your uniqueness as an artist, and what you bring, you know, to the space, you know. And so I'm really appreciative, like, of you sharing that with us. And like Darian said, condolences, you know, to, you know, but it's so important for artists to show that side and contribute that, you know, to the space, you know. I don't know if Darian, I always check in with Darian to see if she wants to add in her 2 cents before I move on.
No, I just wanted to say, you know, with artists who, there's passion when artists work on their music, and there's people who like, I just gotta get to the bag. I just gotta get the next best thing. You can tell when an artist like, you know, get past. I know with you, it was like you said with your inner circle, you wanted them to be like, is this good? Is this good? Is this straight? But when you finally like, when they finally told you like, hey, I'm rocking with this, it's kind of, did you kind of feel that weight lift off of you where you can finally be like, all right, I'm kind of free from overthinking it and can just finally make music for whatever I want to make it for, and not overthink it?
It was a weight because they didn't know that I was emotionally intelligent. You know what I'm saying? Because like you said, I mean, and that's some real shit. I am the cousin that everybody loves. I'm the favorite cousin.
I know that's right.
You know what I'm saying? I am. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm one of the favorite cousins, so I feel that shit. You know what I mean? So when they ask me what I got going on, and even one of my little cousins, he just came back from boot camp, and I seen him at my cousin's house, and he was like, yo, I be listening to your music, cuz that shit fire. You know what I'm saying? Like, it be shit like that. You know what I'm saying? I think Jamon like 21. I think he like 21. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't even make the type of music he listens to. But when he listens to it, you feel like I'm talking to him. You know what I'm saying? Because now he on his own, and he got to deal with those grown man emotions. You know what I'm saying? So that's how I know I did my job. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? It's shit like that. You know what I'm saying? And that's only one person, but that's family though. You know what I mean? Like, nobody knows what people go through. You know what I'm saying? I could get deeper than half the shit that I be talking about, but eventually, you know, you know what I'm saying? Eventually, you know.
Wow. I just want to remind everybody that's in the audience, Four Rings is the latest release from Tillz that we're talking about. In case anybody has just joined or is coming in and out, please go listen to that project as well as the other projects that Tillz has released. I'm so glad I asked that question, because I think you said a mouthful, and I think there are going to be a lot of people that watch this back and are like, damn, like, I feel the same way. And just like you said, like, with your little cousin is like, that's one person, but like that multiplies, right? Like, as your music, you know, you spread your music around and you listen to people, like, there'll be folks like me that connect with it as, you know, a Black woman in a way that is special or unique to me, but I can still identify with you, you know, in the stuff that you're saying, you know. So I really appreciate you sharing that, and this is what this, you know, space is for. We like to add in, you know, all of that into this space, and, you know, bring it to that level, to that deepness here.
Hey, Book said, don't forget Bim Tape, fully produced by Tillz.
Yeah,
you already know, man. Bim Tape.
We're gonna talk about your producing, like, right now. That's a great transition, because I want to talk about sound in this project. So producing, what I want to know, I think you kind of like really talked about like earlier in the podcast episode about producing and how you got into it. Do you like, so as of now, you consider yourself a producer? Like that is a part of your,
I don't.
You know, you don't?
Nah, I never consider myself as a producer. I just made beats because I could. You know what I'm saying? The guys I was doing music with, this dude named Emrel, he usually made the beats, but he moved to Florida and started working with like G Unit. He got like placements with like G Unit and those guys. And he would send beats, but it wasn't enough. So I started making beats myself and got really good at it, and got really, really, really good at it. And like I said, had a lot of stuff, and homie lost the flash drive, so that shit was like devastating. You know what I'm saying? So bought another computer. Didn't have enough space. Dags ended up sending me his Mac. So yeah, Dags, like Dags, I don't know what to say about, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, he ain't have to do that shit. So I've been back on it. Actually, Books, I produced, got a lot of love on his first, on Books' first joint. Then, like I said, I would send these beats in our group chat. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, I made this or whatever. I ain't think on rap to him for real. But they did. And then, MTS, he did Smoke the Shake on Caffeine's Son. And then it's just a little snowball.
Yeah. And I always ask, I kind of had a feeling like, when I asked you, like, are you a producer? Like, I kind of had a feeling like, I wonder if Tillz like identifies with that identity, of being a producer. And I like your answer kind of gave me like what I had already assumed. But the reason why I asked that is because I think that, like the work that you do is really impactful, not just as, a person that is, rapping or, songwriting, but I think you contribute a lot of great sounds, right, to projects, as well as your own. And so, I also wanted to talk a little bit about the way in which this album sounds. So, Four Rings. Okay. Specifically, since, like you said, you curated the album, I think there's a lot of soul into it. I think we got a thing. He was like, I got a thing for soul. And so you can hear a lot of that in your work, sort of across projects. There's a lot of soulfulness. But I also think that you added other instruments too, right? Like, I think Go For That, it sounds a little bit different than like, what you might usually. I loved it. I was like, oh wait, like it knocked me off my socks a little bit. Like I was like, oh, this is like a vibey, like, and you had a lot of double time in that, kind of going back to what we talked about, like linguistically, in your songwriting, like you were double timing in that. I was like, oh wow, this is a side of Tillz that like I usually don't see a ton. So like the way We Got a Thing sounds different from, Go For That, which is kind of like more of a modern sound, or like, the double time vocal work. The sounds are dynamic across the album, I guess is what I'm trying to articulate. Even like Put It Down, to me, like soul and R&B, like the line between the two, is sometimes blurred, but I think Put It Down reflects probably more of like an R&B type sound, maybe less than like the soul or the typical soul that you would hear or people would think when listen to soul, but that there's a thin line in between it. But even there, just to set them, the two beside each other, I think Put It Down, having that element of R&B in your work. So you're doing a lot in this album sound wise. You're not just sticking to the I got a thing for soul, right?
But like you can't really put it in a box.
Yeah, you can't really put it in a box. And it felt like
it's not that type of album.
Yeah. And it felt like you were stepping out a lot. So I was just kind of like interested in, like, as a producer or as a person who makes beats, as you say, I don't know, you don't identify with being a producer, but when you work,
I understand that.
Yeah, because Darian also makes beats and, does producing work as well. But as you were working and putting sounds together for this album, like, were you aiming for a particular sound? Like, it doesn't seem like it because there's such dimension in there, but like.
No, I wasn't aiming for particular sound, but I have songs like this on each project. So the last one I have, Let Your Hair Down. That's basically the same formula as Put It Down. You know what I'm saying? I always make sure, you know, the females that I know, they like to hear certain songs.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I always make sure there's something up there for everybody. Like even with Go For That, you know what I'm saying? It's like trap. You know what I'm saying? Like I always put something up there that everybody can get with. You know what I'm saying? So if that's not somebody's favorite song, that's somebody else's favorite song. So and if that's not somebody's favorite song, I try to touch all lanes, but then still stay in my same lane. Like it took me a long time to find beats. You know what I'm saying? But then some beats I already had. You know what I mean? And people ask me, well, why you don't rap on your own shit? I only rap on my own shit because, you know what I'm saying, Books and them made me rap to that shit. You know what I'm saying? Well, you need to put some of your own production. So that's why I did that. You know what I mean? Y'all might hear more of my production, but I don't like rapping on my own stuff. You know what I'm saying? That's just me personally. You know what I mean? I like to hear what other people. I know the joy that I get when I make a beat. So to touch more on, you know, do I identify as, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes I call myself 10th Wonder. You know what I'm saying? You know, 9th Wonder, Jay Dilla, they my favorite producers. You know what I'm saying? So on some days I identify as a producer when I'm in the mood. Other days not so much, but I don't like making music to the beats that I rap on. I like sharing the wealth and hearing what other people come up with it because it's more special to me that way. You know what I'm saying? So.
And I know Darian I don't know if you might have some 2 cents about this because you create beats and you do a lot of that work and a lot of mixing and stuff like that. So I don't know if you feel the same way. I know earlier you said, I feel the same way. So I don't know if you
I don't label myself as a producer. Like, I guess if you want to be technical, I guess that's what you would call it. But I've always done it as a hobby. So that's why I understand, like, for your music, you can't really put it in a box because it's like, it's something you're passionate, it's something you want to do, it's something you create. And sure, you think about, you know, the listeners and like, okay, I'm going to make sure everybody got something. But you making sure you think for yourself first. And as a person who, you know, makes beats when I do it, I solely be thinking about myself, to be honest. Like, I be challenging myself. Like, I'm like, when I make a mix and I'm satisfied with it, that's amazing to me. Because I usually am never satisfied. I'm always nitpicking and looking at parts that I could have finished or could have did better in, or like, especially when I'm making like beats or sample chopping, I'm like, oh, I could have done that a little differently. But if I'm satisfied with how it's done, it's satisfying to me. And then I'm like, okay, I approve this for myself, so I'm willing to share it with others. And if they like it, great. If somebody don't, it's going to be at least one person that's going to be like, this is pretty cool. So, yeah, that's why I say I understand what he's talking about as far as, like, not labeling himself as a producer.
So you make beats? I didn't know that.
Yep.
Did not know that.
I don't advertise it.
I'm going to need something for the next joint, though.
Hey, let's get it. Collab.
We'll see.
No, Darian.
We'll see.
Darian is a lot like you, Tillz. Like, she's kind of like, you know, like, I'm just happy to be here, like, but she's really, really talented. And like, I'm trying to get her to step out more. We do pre-recorded episodes now with our podcast. So the latest episode we had was like an R&B artist. And each episode, I'm trying to have a producer or anybody who makes beats, you know, however you want to be identified, like sponsor the episode. So you can sponsor your own episode if you want, or we can get someone else. But the idea is to like display the talent of producers, because we don't always interview producers. We want to, so if you're a producer, you want to get interviewed, we want to interview you. But Darian sponsored that episode. She's kind of a lot like you in that way. Like, she's really super talented. She makes great work. So yeah, definitely that's he gonna need some beats for the next project, Darian. So you keep Tillz in mind.
All right.
Just one. You can just. I don't want. You know what I'm saying. I don't want to be greedy. You know what I'm saying. Just one.
I got you.
Word.
Hey, what's up, Ferris Musa? I wanted to talk about, like, kind of bring back, like, Southern identity into this, because I was curious about soul and the way, like, soul is, you know, it's all throughout your work. And I was kind of interested, like, do you think your identity, like, with Southern, you know, culturing, like, that influences your ears? Like, do you think that you have a keenness to soul? Because, you know, in the South, a lot of times I just think, like, even growing up, like, I heard a lot of soul in the house, I heard a lot of blues. And it's not particular to the South, but I feel like in a lot of ways, like, even when we go to fish fries or, like, cookout, we hear a lot of soul, you know? And so I'm just curious if, like, you know, you think your identity, you know, being from Virginia, being from the South, that culture, you know, influenced your interest in keenness and soul. And then on another, like, that's part A. Part B is, like, are there any technical, like, aspects of when you're creating, you know, like drums or anything in particular, like a snare, like, is there anything particularly that you love adding in to your beats, or that you like to play with, or is a signature for you? So that's part B of that question, but yeah.
So I start with part B. So I don't feel like I have a signature sound. I like when people don't know that I made this beat as opposed to that beat, or as opposed to the next beat. You know what I'm saying? I think having a sound is cool, but I don't like being, you know, put in a box. Oh, that sound like a so-and-so beat, or that sound like a, you know, like you can tell what a Neptune's beat is. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's always like distinct sound, which is dope. But me, I like to be known and unknown. You know what I'm saying? So when I play around with snares, I don't just use one snare. I'm using probably 2 or 3 snares to make one sound. I'm probably using 2 or 3 hi-hats to make, you know, a hi-hat sound. You know, especially with the bass. If I'm chopping up a sample, I try to play the bass like the sample, because I don't like. I feel like less is more. You know what I'm saying? But then you got some beats that you gotta have a lot going on. I just like quick to the point. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it take me a long time to make beats. Like, I've been working on chopping this one sample for Dags for a long ass time, and I just finished it. I gotta send that to you, Dags, by the way. But I just finished it. I just couldn't get it right. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, I knew what I wanted to do, but it's just sometimes you gotta come back to that shit. It be too much. You know what I'm saying? Listening to it over and over and over again, chopping it, taking this little part
get ear
off. You know what I'm
fatigue.
saying? Yeah, yep. So, yeah. And then part A to your question was, do I think, you know, Virginia has a lot? Yeah, church has a lot to do with that. I got a lot of cousins older cousins that sing, and, you know, they had soulful voices. You know what I'm saying? Look, those voices that when you sat in church and they sang it, did something to your soul. So when I got put on to, honestly, my favorite movie, which is Dead President, movie with Lorenz Tate, I fell in love with soul music when I listened to that soundtrack. The soundtrack to Dead Presidents, that's, I heard one of the first Curtis Mayfield records that I heard previously, and I found a record in the thrift store. You know, we grew up in church, so my mom wouldn't, like, let us listen to certain stuff, but we listened to it at our cousin's house. Then, you know, eventually my mom didn't care, and, you know, she used to sing the blues. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? I think, you know, a church was really, I wouldn't say it made me rebellious, but I would have to say that it made me look at other outlets. You know what I'm saying? My stepdad was a pastor. You know what I'm saying? My stepdad being a pastor, there was a lot of things that couldn't go on, you know what I'm saying, or that we didn't get to do, you know what I'm saying, until we went to, like, our cousin's house, you know what I'm saying, and stuff like that. So I would have to say, you know, being from here definitely influenced my ear, especially when I make beats, because I do like that soulful stuff, you know what I mean? I like making original beats too, but I also like to chop samples. Like, I love that shit, man. Like, that shit is just different. You know what I mean? It give me a different feeling. So much that I don't want to rap on this shit. You know what I'm saying? It gives me, like I said,
it's art. You create a beat tape.
Right.
Yeah. What you said about sampling is super important too, because there are some times where like folks just loop a sample and they think that it's done the most of the work, especially if it's soul, because soul is so, it just has that feeling and it, you know, attaches to people and it grabs you. But I think the way in which you utilize samples is like super beautiful. And you are just a beat maker. I think sometimes the discourse, like in hip hop especially, is a beat maker between a producer. And what they say is like, beat makers would just loop a sample and not really do any of the heavy work to place it in a certain way that it adds value to the record as a whole, or use it in a way that's really slick and new and modern, and not just like placing it on there, you know, like another person, right. Whatever. So I think a lot of your sample work, the way in which you sample, is really beautiful. And you have your own creative way of doing it that adds to the value of the record as a whole. So I just wanted to talk about sound for a little bit. I don't know if Darian, if you have anything to add on to that.
Yeah, I mean, like, when it comes to, like, when people try to separate producers and beat makers, like, if they knew how hard it was to actually find a sample to loop, whether it's a recurrent loop or just a little piece or a small piece where it's, like, distinctive, like, one of my favorite producers is Q-Tip. Q-Tip used to take samples and just literally just, like, pull it right from the record. Most people may not know that song, but people who know that song may be like, hey, I recognize it. So it's just, now it sounds like it's convoluted with a whole bunch of samples because we recognize music. Music is at our fingertips. We can instantly get the song and be like, hey, I thought I remember that. Where back then, they were pulling songs from places we didn't even know nothing about. So I think if we tap back into like finding music, finding music that people don't really know about, and challenging yourself with different sounds, you're able to get a sound where people are like, where is that from? And that is fun, you know. That's the fun part about it. But you know, everybody plays it safe because they, like he was saying earlier, the approval of it. Sometimes people just want that approval from their either peers or from mainstream, and they don't really want to go outside and challenge themselves because they're fear of being judged. And it's challenging, but you know, that's what it really boils down to.
Speaking of sampling, don't ever sample no Stevie Wonder shit, because one song didn't make the record. And it was a very, very personal song. It probably would have changed the mood, but that song didn't make the record because of the sample. And the producer, the dude who made it, didn't get it cleared after I paid for this shit. But it's all good. I'm gonna probably put it on SoundCloud or something like that. But you gotta be careful who you sampling too.
Yeah, because Stevie Wonder's people like everybody.
Yeah, they don't play that shit.
Yeah,
they don't play that.
Stevie Wonder. I have this copyright lawyer come up. Like I'm working right now in like copyright inside of publishing right now. Like we talk about that a lot, and it's just funny because I deal in the underground a lot, interview like underground artists, and so it's just really funny. I'm in the back, like no sample snitching in the back. Is one of those ones, and like Dax just said, he got that ear. Like you really do have. That's a part of the art, and I think Darian was touching on that too. Is having the ear, you know, to dig in the crates, you know, and you know, be slick and savvy with it. So yeah, I really appreciate you sharing that. And I got a better understanding of sound in your album. And it's super, you know, dynamic, and there's a lot of dimension. So the next section I want to talk about is structure. So the structure of your album. So it's only 12 songs, which is a great length to me. I think it was around like 38 minutes or something like that. Perfect length. Like, I'm never one to like judge people like how long their albums are, but like listening to your music, it was like super digestible. Like that album was a really great length, and I was like, oh, it's over? Like I almost like wanted more, you know? And so that was my first thing when I heard about the structure, like super, super great length. I think you did a great job with placement of tracks too. That's always another question that I ask artists too. Like, is structure like important to you, like in general when you're putting together an album, like especially with
it's important
placements?
It's important because even with the features, it's like I know I didn't want, you know, my guys to be at the end. You know what I'm saying?
Ooh.
Like, you know, because some people might have listened to the 4 songs. So if they listened to the first 4 songs, they heard everybody. You know what I'm saying? Then what I did with Peace Interlude, I think that's number 7.
Mm-hmm.
When you came back for the rest of it, so if you listen to 1 through 6, you heard those guys, and then when you came back to it, you heard another feature, and then close the album out. So you know what I mean? Like I definitely think song placement is a big deal, but that shit be hard because I did the list probably like 10 times. You know what I'm saying? Because I didn't want to put anybody at the end. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I just feel like that's lame. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like I just 12 joints. Well, I got 3 features. Well, 4 features, and you know what I'm saying? Yeah, let's just go ahead and get it out the way, so that way, even if a person don't listen to the whole joint, they heard my guys. You know what I'm saying? And then they can go and listen to their music, and then listen to their catalog, and then see that all this shit is just intertwined, and that it's a whole big happy fucking party.
Word. And like when I was listening to it, and like always, structure is fascinating to me too. And the way some artists are like, nah, I just threw that together. Like I've literally interviewed artists and I'm like, nah, I didn't do any placement. But the way in which it played out was like, you would have thought that they did. So for some artists it's important, some is not. But I think to hear you say that it was important in your process and that you did place things out strategically is like, yeah, I got that. Because I think the way in which you did the track placements, it broke up a lot of and created a lot of dimension within the album. So like we'd hear a lot of soul, then all of a sudden, like you talked about, Put It Down, which to me, like I guess instrumentation wise, like would fit more like R&B category. And so it was dope to have you be like, oh, here's some soul, but like here's where we like put the thin line, like the blurred line of R&B and instrumentation, like kind of proves that it might be a little more of an R&B record rather than a soul. And so, and then it was just a lot of dimension and a lot of like dynamic, sounds within the album. And so I think structure can help you do that a lot, and paying attention to structure can help you sort of key into that. So another part of structure I wanted to add was about, and I think you just mentioned on this, which is great. You always like predate what I'm about to say, which is awesome because I can transition. But collaboration. So like collaborations take many forms. So like we were just talking about features. So what role does collaboration play in your music? And I guess particularly to this album, like you talked about features already, but like kind of like talk about that more and why, collaboration is important, or why it was important for this album, feature wise, production wise, creating a particular sound or different sounds, as we just said. So just kind of talk about that a little more.
The features was important because so me and Dags did 8:15 back in December when he came here for his daughter's birthday. He did that when he came here. I already knew the direction that I was going with this project, you know what I'm saying? Like some drumless stuff, and then some loops and stuff like that. And then the feature from MTS and Books, like I sent that and they did it. I didn't get my Vega feature yet because he's working real hard, you know what I'm saying? But we gonna make that shit happen. But anyway, me and Pete did that song back early, I want to say 2022, beginning of 2022. But I knew that I was doing this album, and you know what I'm saying? When I hit him up, I'm like, yo, I'm about to use this song, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna name it Peace Interlude because I felt like he killed that shit, you know what I'm saying? But me and Pete got songs, from back in the day, but he got a project out too, by the way. These features, I ain't have too many. I just had ones that were important to me this time around. You know what I'm saying? It was important for me to have, and I just want to reiterate, man. Like, even though my Vega Ronin verse ain't up here, he sent that sample, so you know what I'm saying. He got a part of this shit. You feel me? You know what I'm saying? So yeah. So features with they were important to me, man, and I appreciate those guys for doing that shit, like at the drop of the hat, man, and, you know, being sent those samples. So, yeah. What was the other part of your question? My bad. I feel like
that
I'm
was
rambling.
basically it, because, like, you know, in terms of sound, like, you know, you curated a lot of the sound on this project. So, like, the other one would have been, like, for instance, when we interviewed MTS Music, like, he had different producers, such as yourself, working on the project. And so, like, in terms of production, too, like, if you were an artist that used a lot of other producers, or why would you use them, or why it was important to include that? So that would have been a part.
Yeah. I only produced one joint up here. Mm-hmm. Like, I used other producers, a couple of guys that I've used on each project.
Yeah.
And like I hit these guys up and I let them know, yeah, I need another one, or I'll listen to their BeatStars joint. But they actually reach out, and I like dealing with producers who actually respond. You know what I'm saying? Because if that were me, I would respond. I would want to know who's doing something to, you know, my music, and I've never gotten bad reception from anything that I've done. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, man, I like the collection of different sounds. You know what I'm saying? I like the way that how it starts off soulful, starts off powerful, and then to the last track, Celebrate. Like I said, that's just me talking to myself. You know what I'm saying? It's like when I sat back, like I made the last track first for this album. The last track that I made, which is Celebrate, I made that's the first joint. So I already knew where I was gonna go from the beginning. Well, actually, the intro, I changed the beat twice. The other beat that I had was crazy, but it just wasn't as powerful as this sample. You know what I'm saying? The pregame joint. So from this, but this is also the first time that I've given a fuck about the top to the bottom. You know what I'm saying? I would make songs and knew where I was going, but you know what I'm saying? I didn't think about it too much. Like, I thought about this shit. I thought about who I was going to have on what, and if I couldn't get this person on this, I knew he was going to be a part of this shit some way, somehow. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, that shit is important, you know? And as opposed to 20, I think the last project had like 23 songs. That's only because I was waiting for features and niggas just wasn't showing up. You know what I'm saying? So I sat on music. You know what I'm saying? I got tired of sitting on music, so I had to put it all out at once, or it was, you know what I mean? So that's why that
part of collaboration sometimes, like when we were doing MTS Music's interview, we talked about that a lot too, like why he had no features on his EP. He was like, yo, this is like a quick thing that I kind of just put out, you know, because other aspects like waiting for producers to respond, waiting for features, you know, not to like shit on anybody, but like it can prolong the process for sure. And so, you know, you have to think about those things when you're creating a project, and sort of like timing and when things come out and releasing. So I was just really curious and interested about the structure. I don't know if Darian has any comments. If not, I'll move on to my next little.
You summed it up.
Cool. I want to talk about fatherhood and music with you.
Okay.
And it's fitting because your daughter was in here earlier and she's so sweet. I want to talk about what it's like being a father and managing artistry as well, and finding a balance between the two. And I know you mentioned earlier that your daughter is involved in a lot of, you know, your music making process. So kind of just like, you know, speak to that a little bit, you know, fatherhood and music.
Okay, yeah, she's a studio baby anyway. So like even earlier on, you know, I never been the type of person to go to the studio with a lot of people. I actually kind of hate that shit, really. And then most of the time I had my daughter, you know what I'm saying, in the car seat. She knocked out, you know what I mean? So like I said, she is studio baby. It really ain't, it's really not a balance, because she picked it up, you know what I'm saying? Like even on my second project, that song she's on, she got a little voice then. Like I remember I would play that beat so much, and one day I was sitting in here writing, and she was like, I got something for that. And I was like, you do? And she spit that joint for me. And I was like, oh yeah, that's crazy. You know what I'm saying? So it's really not a balance. You know what I mean? It's more so like she a rider. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like she want to do it, but then she don't want to do it. You know, like that she too cool for it. You know what I'm saying? Because her friends don't do it, and they don't know she's talented like that.
Yeah.
They don't know she got skills like that because it's not cool. You know what I'm saying? Like, so yeah, that was never hard. You know, being a father and getting music done was never hard because she in a lot of those studio videos that I had on my old page that somebody hacked that page, so I don't got those videos no more. But yeah, man, that shit easy. I ain't even gonna lie to you. It was easy. Shit was easy.
And that's so great, important to hear too. We've on this podcast, I've had several other artists, and we've talked about a lot of them have been parents. Just in the same way that you have a career outside of hip hop and rapping as well. A lot of people are parents, and they have responsibilities, and they have similar responses. To the saying that they are a part of this. Like, there isn't it like isn't separate. It isn't this is it all comes together. And so I think that's important to put out there. You're an emerging artist. There are going to be people that watch the interview back and be like, oh, well, I have a kid too. Like, maybe I can do this, because, perception would probably be that, like, oh, because I have a child, that, like, I can't do certain things, like, pursue, a career in music or, that sort of thing. So I always love to ask that question about, whether it's motherhood or fatherhood, like, the way in which, interacts with your artistry, I think is super important.
Yep. She was right there in the car seat.
Yeah.
Right there in the car
and I've
seat.
seen a lot of the videos too, like some on your page, like of her and like being in the studio with you, and it's like so powerful and like cute to see, and then like her being talented, in her own right, like in her own way, developing into her own, artist herself, and that is like has a level of importance, as well as she grows and develops and, hones those skills, if she ever gets, interested in it to a point that, she might want to pursue a career or something like that, and so that's just super dope to hear. And appreciate you sharing, that personal aspect of, being a father and being involved in music. So we're coming to a close here. We've been on for like at least an hour and a half. I knew this would be, full of content, full of energy. This interview with Tillz. I hit you up like several times, like even way before the album dropped, and I was like, I gotta get you on Suga Friendz podcast. I gotta get you on. Because I knew
you asked me like last March. You asked me. Yeah, you asked me a minute ago, so
It's been a long time coming, and I was anticipating this project so much, and I heard a lot about it even before it came out. Didn't hear anything, which is great. I love not to hear projects before they come out, because then it's like a total surprise, and so I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. And I have a little thing here I wanted to talk about your art.
Okay.
Somebody just said it in the chat, but I was just about to get on the album cover before we closed. And I told Darian this before we interviewed you. You made your album cover.
Yeah, I made the album cover. Actually, it was 2 pictures, and I also used like this generator, which gave me like the blue tint. So I, it's not AI created. You know what I'm saying? Like, I drew it and used 2 programs to actually I filtered the picture like maybe 15 times.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? Till I got that. But yeah, and then I did a little bit of Photoshop with the rings. I took 4 championship rings and put them on my hand. Yeah, I mean, I've done all my covers.
Yeah.
Except for All Is Worth. This other guy did that, but I end up adding a lot to it. So, yeah, man, I try to be a one-stop shop.
Yes, that's the best way to be. And the reason why I mentioned that, like, before we close is because I want to spend a little time on it, because I think that aspect of your artistry is super important. And one-stop shop is true, but, like, a whole lot of people are one-stop shop, but a whole lot of people don't know how to draw, don't know how to paint, right? And like, you are not just like a person just doing it. Like, you're very, very talented at that, right? Janet is in the back. You're extremely talented. Like, you do really good. And I remember you actually sending me, or like, I think you posted it up on your story, the album cover of Four Rings. And I like swiped up and I was like, OMG, like, this is so dope. And you're like, I made that. And I had no idea. I had never heard from anybody that you were a painter, like that you drew and like you did physical art. Like, I hadn't heard that. And so to see that and then like connection, I remember talking to somebody, I can't remember who it was, but I remember talking to someone and I had sent them the album cover and they were like, oh, like, who did that? Like, and I was like, one of this guy that I know did this album cover, and like, this is his album. Like, not only did he do the album cover, but like, this is his album. And then like, they were interested in like, well, does he sell his art? Like, all of that was like a part of it. And so that shit.
Hey, look, man, everything is for sale. everything is for sale.
I've seen that one. Beautiful.
Everything is for sale.
Yeah, I remember having that.
I put these behind me because you know, I didn't want to just be, you know, have a plain wall, you know what I'm saying, and you know what I mean. So I put those behind me. I felt like it would give it a little bit of feng shui.
Yeah, but I just wanted to mention that, like, because I've and other stuff that you sent me in the DM to other people, and they're like, whoa, like, that's dope. Like, I would buy from him.
Yeah.
So that's such a dope thing to, like, a skill to have, like, in your, you know, your tool belt, is to be able to do a lot of your own work. Does your artistry, like your physical art, does it like interact with your music in any way? Like, are you like the same way in which you creatively process like music? Like, do you think you creatively process like physical art in the same way? Like, is there any connection in any way? Like, I know you do album covers, but like in terms of like a creative process, like, because it's so interesting, like, to align between like, you know, vocal art and like physical art. And so I'm just curious, like, when did you start drawing? Like, did you just pick it up? Like, how did that even?
I always could draw. You know what I'm saying? I don't want that shit to sound funny, but I always could draw. This is something that ran in the family. But I just started painting in 2016.
Yeah.
So my homeboy Bless, who I recorded his studio, he asked me to paint a portrait of his dad for his birthday, and I'm like, I ain't never painted shit ever, but that's my man. So I'm gonna do it, and it ended up coming out dope. And I just would paint stuff, you know, every now and then. So my plan is to, when I get 16 pieces, with, if not the next project, but the project after that, is, you know, rent out a space and have like a little art gallery type thing, and you know, drop the music that way.
Yeah, that'd be a dope like album release. I think that'd be really dope. So yeah, I just wanted to include that in there. I think that's super important. That's a super dope skill to have in your tool belt. And like you said, you're a one-stop shop. Like in the little promo thing I did earlier, I was like, he's like the Renaissance man. I think I've heard MTS say that a lot. Like, you're a Renaissance man. I think that's like true. Like, you could have existed in the Renaissance era, like where everybody just knew how to do like shit, and like they applied that just in society, and like it benefited a lot of people. So that's really, really dope. I want to talk a little bit about the underground space too before we go, because the reason why we started this podcast was to tap in with underground artists and have meaningful conversations with the artists. You know, our podcast is very project specific. You know, we get into stuff, we get into the context of, you know, your writing. We get into, you know, the technical aspects. You know, we leave all the other stuff out, and we sort of, you know, we do your journey to music. We like to center the artist a lot. And so I always ask the same question and I get different responses. You know, some of it is similar, but I just want to know, like, what do you think being underground is? Like, what does it mean to you as an artist to be underground?
To be underground is personally, that's the essence, man, to me. Of course, I think mainstream and underground is definitely a totally different sound, but if you can merge the two, then, you know, you kind of got a formula that a lot of people don't have. But being underground to me is soulful. It's samples, drum kicks, hi-hats, loops, bass, gritty beats, um, emotional intelligence, bars. Um, I mean, if you really want to be technical, being underground is just not being known by mainstream. That's pretty much it. You know what I'm saying? I like being underground. Like I said, I like when people don't know that I've made this or that or produced this on this person's. I mean, I like shit like that. I don't, you know what I'm saying? I'm not a limelight person. I believe in giving other people their flowers. It's hard for me to accept my own. So, yeah, that's what I think it is.
That's a great answer, and I love asking that question because I like to hear everybody's different answers because everybody has their own interpretation of the underground. But I do get a consistent thread too, which is kind of what you said. I think you put it like perfectly. It's the essence, right? Like if you look back to early hip hop and the way in which it started, from the beginning. It was a lot of like essence work, like roots work, like community work. You should just say like community, like a lot of community work. And your emotional intelligence, being intelligent about the world around you. We talked earlier a lot about understanding society and about life. And then of course it's the bars, right? It's the technical work, it's the slickness, being able to rhyme.
Yeah, somebody said, I don't want to mess his name up. Similar, he said to be underground is to be self-influenced and unique. Yeah, exactly. You know what I'm saying? Like
that's a great.
That's definitely a good answer. I believe that too. I mean, it's a lot of characteristics that come with being underground because no one person is alike.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So yeah.
That's so true. What is it like? Sort of about like on the like. So success, right? The underground space, I think there can be a lot of times, like as artists, even me, like I'm not an artist, like in terms of like vocally or put things out, but like even curating a podcast or an interview underground, it's a very much like underground type of feel or aesthetic. Like it's not popping, it's not mainstream, and so sometimes like we can get into this funk when we're making music, or when y'all are making music, or when we're making as creatives, when we're putting out creative work, about success, like a stickler on success, and what does it mean to be successful. In the underground space, I think can mean different things for different people. But I'm just curious from you, what does success look like? As just not even just as an artist, like in general, like what does success in this mean? Or do you even care about success? Like, how do you, weigh your?
I'm gonna be honest with you. So success to me in this space is having people around you that are like-minded. You know what I'm saying? When you have people who are around you that are like-minded, you know what I'm saying? That opens doors for other things. You know what I'm saying? I don't look at success in the form of money. You know what I'm saying? If we leave here today and one more person listens to some shit that I did, and that person listens to some shit that my homeboy did, like that's success to me. Like I don't, you know what I'm saying? I'm not monetizing this. You know what I'm saying? Like, so yeah.
Daria, did you want to like add anything in? We kind of said a lot in that little.
No, yeah, I agree. Like when you doing music and you really enjoy doing music, you're not doing it for like the money aspect or the popularity aspect. It's more so like you doing it because you enjoy doing it, and the only like thing you may want is like, hey, y'all fucking with this? Y'all enjoying this?
Exactly.
Like, does this sound straight?
Exactly.
Sometimes you work on it so much to the point like, I don't even know if it sounds good anymore. And so you kind of just want to word of mouth, and then your friend's like, oh yeah, this sounds good. I think for me, as a person who works on music and don't label myself or look for popularity or money, when my friends give me constructive criticism and they're like, I actually enjoyed it. Matter of fact, add this to it, or I like what you did with this. If you just need to add this or tweak this, that means I have the potential to grow, and them telling me is like, okay, let me be more mindful of that. So that's probably the most you want to get out of it when you're making music and you kind of like in the background. You're not looking for a popularity, you're looking for structure. You're looking for improvement.
Yeah.
Yeah, because all that other stuff will come. You know what I'm saying? Like, all that other stuff will come. You know what I'm saying? That's why I said, you know, it's different when somebody's doing something for money as opposed to, you know, doing it because that's their passion. You know, let me give you an example, right? I know we got to go. So think about this. A person who cooks food and, you know, they put love in their food, how they cook their food, they take their time with their food, as opposed to a person who slaps some shit together because they can. You can tell when a person cooks with love and a person who just, you know what I'm saying? Think about one of your favorite restaurants and you went there one day and the shit was amazing, and then the next time you went, the food was trash. You know what I'm saying? Because it's busy when you got to mass produce and get this same dish to this table, this table, this table, this table. You come up with the shortest possible way you can put this together. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah.
And your point of like mass producing too is like an interesting thing, like outside of the restaurant industry, but even in like artistry, right? In art. Because one of my next questions was like that I thought about while you were speaking was like, do you sit with your projects any like after? Because I know like sometimes with especially y'all, like y'all produce a lot of work fast. Like, do you ever go back and like reflect on like prior projects and just, you know, get it?
I do.
Okay.
I do. Sometimes I listen to shit and it make me want to call up a person that made me feel a certain type of way. You know what I'm saying? And you know what I mean? Because like I said, you know what I mean? Like, when you put your heart in this shit, it's different when you listen to it back and you seeing where you've come from, you know what I'm saying, and how you mature emotionally about situations, you know, like, that I may have speaking on, or, you know what I mean? Like, even with some, like, I changed. You know, I said I could have fixed some friendships. I ain't tried enough. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's real shit. You know, like, everybody can't go. And me knowing that everybody can't go, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm cool with that. Or, you know, some shit I said, you know, I burnt those bridges because I know how to swim. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't mind burning bridges. You know what I'm saying? Especially if my peace is involved. You know what I mean? Like, I think everybody know what it's like to have somebody, you know, disturb your peace. And I don't want to sound cliche, but that shit is real, man.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You know you've woken up some days and had shit going on with people, family members, and, you know, you couldn't sleep at night. They sleeping fine. You know what I'm saying? When you got to carry those burdens, you know what I'm saying? And when, you know, everything fall on your shoulders, man, and then when you finally able to just let that shit go and get it off of you, man, like, man, this shit I be saying in these songs be real. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, I don't gotta say who I'm talking to. When they hear the shit, they know who I'm talking to, man. You know what I'm saying? That's family members, friends, or ex-friends, or, you know what I'm saying? Whoever, you know what I mean? So, yeah.
You always say a mouthful and such important, and I think in a lot of ways, like you were talking about earlier about like you speaking with your little cousin and how he mentioned like, yo, this really helped me like a lot. Like, even me personally listening to your album when it dropped just in this short bit of time, like it's helped me a lot too in the space that I operate in, and realizing that like it's okay to like acknowledge your skill, acknowledge what you do great, and pop your shit, but in a way that's like tasteful too, right? Like, I think you do it in a tasteful way, but in a way that also adds value to the space, you know, adds value to other people. And so I think your album has really helped me like identify like, yeah, I might not be on like now, but like eventually my time will come and I'll get to that point.
Yeah.
And, you know, any connections that I've lost in between that time, or like you just said, like burn bridges, like maybe they weren't, you know, right to be had in, you know, and whatever you weren't born with in this world, you don't need. And so, you know, really like your album is just really impactful. And I think a lot of people are going to walk away with that kind of understanding about it. And yeah, it's just dope.
I appreciate that, man. Like, for real, like I appreciate it. Like, you know, just to reiterate, like, celebrate. That's celebrating wins. That those are wins to come. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not just on some rap shit. that's career wise. You know what I'm saying? Like I go to work every day. You know what I mean? Well, not every day, but I'm off on weekends. You know what I'm saying? But you know.
But you go to work.
You know what I mean?
Monday through Friday.
You know what I'm saying? Like yeah, but when I go to work, you know what I mean? Like that's I mean, it's just celebrating wins to come.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And celebrating getting to a certain point in your life where for me personally, is acknowledging that, like I said, everybody can't go, man. Like I'm gonna go ahead and toast to this shit right now. You know what I'm saying? Because this ain't it. You know what I mean? It's more to come. You know what I mean? That's on a personal level, and I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Yeah, and "Celebrate" was like one of my favorite songs. Like I said, I'm playing the hell out of that. Like it's getting like hella. It's gonna be, you know how when you log into like Spotify and you see an artist like little top 5 or whatever, like expect to go top 5 because I done played it enough for like the nation.
Yeah, it is. I saw it.
It's right.
I did see it.
I guarantee you other people is playing it like I am too, because like that record is the one. Like that was so dope. I just love the like charismatic, like yeah, it's me, like type energy, like but like also like really tasteful. I love Quarter Past. I love Valencia's Orange. I think you had mentioned it was, earlier. I think it was like probably like a couple weeks ago, but like Larry June kind of inspired Valencia.
Yeah.
So that was dope to see that. Pete's Interlude was dope. Just so many records on there. I mean, so many tracks on there that I just thought just really connected with me personally, that I loved. So just thank you for giving us 4 rings,
Hey, appreciate it.
Thank you for
appreciate y'all for having me.
What's next for Tillz? So this is your moment. Like this is the part of the interview where you can lay it all out there. What's next for Tillz? What have you worked on up until this point? Just everything involving Tillz. Like shout out whoever you want to shout out, projects that you've produced for. This is like the moment for that, like right
now. Okay, yeah. I got visuals. I'm gonna be working on visuals a lot. I'm gonna be doing those to myself. I'm almost done with. I'm shooting a video for Celebrate. I think I got like 2 more locations. Yeah, 2 more locations, and that'll be done. Mo getting ready to drop on the 27th. I'm on there. That's from Low Tune with Love. Again, BIM tape, produced by me. That's Books. I'm gonna be on some Vega shit soon, and he gonna be on some Tillz shit soon. Me and MTS got a joint tape coming out soon. Me and Dad's gonna get some work in. Dad's working on something too. What else? I might drop again on my birthday. That's August the 7th. I might do like a five piece EP. I already got a couple of joints for that. So yeah, man, I'm just really focused on visuals this time around, and I'm probably gonna go back and shoot some videos for some, from the previous projects too. So yeah, that's what I'm working on. Yeah.
I would love to see some stuff from No Love Lost. I really love that album as well. If anybody doesn't know, that was the album that 4 rings.
I'm definitely doing some joints from.
Yeah.
Some joints on that. Yeah.
Remember from No Love Lost is like one of my favorite songs like ever. That's you and MTS Music. Like when that song gets me like in a space. Like first of all, MTS killed his verse on that, but I think that song for some reason, again, a lot of your music just speaks to me, but I really love that album too. That was a really great album as well. Okay, so you got visuals coming out, which we're all excited
for. Dak said he got Cali tapes coming soon.
Ooh,
Cali said we ain't finished till 32 rings. That's a lot of rings. BIM tape. Yeah, man. We waiting for Mo to drop. You know what I'm saying? Mo got the next drop. Like I said, I'm up there. You know what I'm saying? Appreciate bro for having me up there. And we're gonna get back in the mix and do some more. I'm just working on visuals right now. Dag's got some visuals he working on too. So, like I said, man, like I tell them guys, I'm just happy to be here. I'm happy to be a part of what they got going on, and I appreciate them for being a part of what I got going on, and I appreciate y'all for having me. You know what I'm saying? Letting me talk about what I got going on and what they got going on and what y'all got going on. So,
we appreciate you, Tillz. We appreciate all that you do. You know, shout out to everyone you just shouted out and all of the work everybody's doing. You know, the underground space, there's a lot of like interesting energy going on, but there's also a lot of love and community work. And so on Suga and Friends podcast, like that's just like what we like to, you know, center here is a lot of like positive work, a lot of like support, community work. So yeah, we really appreciate you coming on Suga and Friends podcast. Like I said, I begged you to come on here because we really, really want Tillz on the podcast. I don't know if Jerry wanted to say something a little bit before we go, wanted to add a little piece in.
No, I appreciate you sharing your work and wanting to share your work because I know a lot of times when it's personal, when it's something from the heart, people can kind of want to covet and kind of want to like, you know, keep it to themselves. And I always appreciate when artists like want to share because that takes courage, and I do appreciate that.
Right. And we try to consider this, you know, again, we appreciate like everything you do, and we try to center all of our interviews on like, again, the journey to music of the artist and, you know, what they bring to the community at large. And we think you do great work. So every artist we have come on here, we try and do that. We try and center that. So again, we really, really appreciate anything. Shout out to your daughter who was on here earlier.
Yeah, she's sweet.
Shout out to her. That was really cute. Thanks, Dax. Dax has great interview, insight, questions. I really appreciate it. We had Dax on like some months ago now. So we really appreciate you tapping in with us, and we're always here to support you, you know, at Suga and Friends, as well as everybody else in the underground community space. And we're looking for more from you. But again, if anybody hasn't heard yet, 4 Rings is out. It's on all DSPs. Go buy, go stream, and go support everything Tillz. This is Suga and Friends podcast with Alex Raquel
And Bria.
And we just interviewed the very legendary songwriter, rapper, producer.
Oh, one more thing. Sleep is the cousin on all DSPs right now.
Hey.
Vega, let's go. All right, my bad.
No, you're totally fine. We encourage all that energy. This is your interview. You make it however you want it. Again, we encourage you stepping out. This episode will be up on my Instagram Live, like the little reel section, probably for like 24 hours, so that I can download it and put it on to YouTube with all of like the nice edits.
I lift my foot up, try me tubes and